if you're writing something that's more character driven, you know, you're pulling from your life if you're smart, because that's where you have the details. And specificity is the most interesting thing, and it's the weirdest thing, because the more specific you are, the more universal it is. Even if it's so specific to your life and nobody can relate to that exact situation, they can relate to the feeling of being in that situation. I always would write about myself or the character as a person who struggled. Like, she struggled in love, she struggled in dating, she struggled in career. She was always like the underdog. And that worked for me. And then when I was 35, I met my now husband, Simon, and he just was like a very different kind of person for me. He was well-adjusted and healthy and normal, and it felt like, oh, I can like relax. Like, I'm actually in the relationship I'm meant to be in, and all that angst kind of went away, and I felt like all my creativity went away, because I didn't really know what to write about if I'm in this like healthy relationship.
Right. Art comes from the struggle. That's
Yes.
that's what we all think, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, it does a lot of it, you know?
Yeah.
And so at that point, I just sort of thought, I've tried, I've done things that I could be proud of, and maybe that's enough for me. You know, maybe now I settle into this next phase of my life, and I'm a wife and hopefully a mom, and I think I could be okay with that, you know? And so for like 3 years, I didn't write at all. But you know, when you're like put on this earth to do something and you feel in your bones that this is what you're supposed to do, it doesn't matter how successful something is, you still feel like you're not living up to your potential. And I think that there's a few roots of happiness and unhappiness, and I think happiness is living up to your potential. It's like when you know you could be doing more with your life, but you aren't. You know you could be doing better at something, but you're not choosing to. You feel bad about yourself. And I felt bad about myself for sure. Even though I was in the best relationship of my life and I was thriving in so many other ways, I was just like, what am I doing? You know, it felt a little empty.
Yeah.
So the same guy who told me that I should write Leslie was like, you're converting to Judaism in the process to get married. And he was like, this is a show. And I honestly like didn't see it at first. I was like, really, what's the show? I can't, like, is it a girl in conversion classes? I couldn't figure it out. And then when I started talking about it and analyzing it, I realized that, you know, being in the wrong relationship is easy because that person is always the problem. That was my experience. Like, it's very easy to be with someone who's cheating on you, lying to you, being an asshole, because you do not have to look at yourself at all. They are always the problem, and you can always blame them for all the problems that you're having. Then when you get into a healthy relationship with someone who's not doing that stuff, you have to like look at yourself. And that is not at all fun. And my husband was like, you can't storm out of a room when we get into a fight. You can't like cuss at me in a fight. I was like, why not? That's what fights are for. Like, you're there to win the fight. Like,
there has to be a winner, right?
I was like, isn't the point of a fight to win?
Yeah.
He's like, no, the point of a fight is for us to like hear each other and then not have that fight again. I was like, no one's ever told me that before. So it was a very uncomfortable process having to see that I also was the problem in those relationships. And that's when I started realizing maybe that is an interesting show, is a woman meeting this great guy. I really like the idea of a man being represented in TV who is nice but also has riz. You know, I feel like there's always a strong woman and she ends up with a guy that would never be able to handle her in real life. And I don't like the idea that nice guys have to be portrayed as soft, because you can be a good guy and also have firm boundaries. That's my husband. When I met my husband, I thought, like, he is adorable. He is way too sweet for me. I would eat him alive and he could never handle me. And then he like fully put his foot down and was like, basically like, put your bag down, I'm gonna give you the best kiss of your life kind of energy. And I didn't know that that existed. So if I'm shocked to see that there's a man who can love you and be honest and pure and good, but also boss you around a little bit, then I think other women would want to see that. And so that was really the impetus of the show. But originally he was not a rabbi in the show. Originally, because my husband's not a rabbi. And originally it was just these two people. and it was about being Jewish or non-Jewish. But, this happens a lot is you have an idea and it makes a lot of sense until you start dissecting it and you start planning, like, what do you do for 20 episodes? And the truth is, like, if he were just Jewish, for this not to work between them, he would need to be like a Hasidic Jew. Like, it would have to be like so extreme. And then that's a story I don't even know how to tell because I don't know any Hasidic Jews. So then we had to ramp it up and make him a rabbi because a rabbi really couldn't be with a girl who's not Jewish. And then then everything really started to make more sense. Like, okay, now we have our conflict.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, this was not my title choice.
Okay.
Okay, so
talk about that.
I wanted the show to be called Shiksa. That's what the title of the pilot was called. That's what the show was called when we developed it. Then we took it out, and everybody passed. Netflix was our last pitch. So we pitched to Hulu, they passed. We pitched to Apple, they passed. Amazon passed.
Nobody wanted this.
That's why life is so weird, is like for me, I think that, I hate saying this because it sounds like very self-helpy, but acceptance has been like the greatest gift in my life. So if something isn't working, I don't try to force it. If everyone's like, we don't see a show here, I'm not like banging on their door. And maybe for somebody else that works. But I am happier when I can accept the truth of a situation. So if someone doesn't want to be with you, you should accept that. And if somebody doesn't want to make your show, like, you have to accept it. I can't change my reality. So that's how I'm happy. So I accepted it. I was like, I guess this is just not meant to be. And then we pitched to Netflix, and I was like pretty shocked when they said yes.
So you didn't change much. It was the same script.
It never changed.
Never changed. So what was different? Why do you think Netflix wanted it?
Well, I used to think before this process that it really didn't matter where you sold a show, because as a viewer, I don't know what I'm watching. I don't know if I'm watching Bravo or Peacock or Hulu or Paramount Plus. Like, I don't know. I mean, Paramount Plus is actually hard to get, so that I know when I'm watching that because you have to like pay extra. It's like very annoying.
And you know when you're watching Bravo.
You know when you're watching
Tables
Bravo
are being
it's
flipped.
So good.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But I know now it really matters where you make a show. Like, it really, Netflix, and I'm not saying this to like butter up to them, because like I'm already in with them. I don't have to.
Yeah.
But it is a different stratosphere. The access that they have is like everything else combined. Something that they do that I think is really smart, intuitive, is that as a writer, when you're taking things out, you always hear people telling you, everybody wants a workplace comedy right now because of The Office. Or, I mean, that's like a dated reference, but you know what I mean. Everybody wants feel good because Ted Lasso's hitting. Everybody really wants multi-generational because that show is working. Yeah. They're always trying to catch up with the last show that hit. And Netflix doesn't do that. So my show was not like a rom-com, because I don't know how to write in genres. I actually didn't know it was a rom-com. I actually thought that I wrote Fleabag. Like, I literally thought it was like an edgy comedy.
Yeah.
And they saw a rom-com, and they saw a vehicle for Kristen Bell, who they know works really well on their network. And they were like definitely wanting another project for her. The script was already written. And if she liked it, it was like a go. And Kristen was not the person that I had envisioned in my mind, because I was making this like indie Fleabag show in my mind. Were
you ever thinking of yourself or your sister?
Yes, I was. Oh. Very much. I sold the idea to 20th First for me to star in. The truth is that, you have a lot of power if you can be the writer and the star, in terms of like, it's a package that people can see, right? They're like, okay, she's the voice, and she's the face, and she's the writer, and like it looks good to them. It's like the Mindy Kaling concept, like they like that formula. So I was happy to be a part of that. But when Netflix got on board and they were like, that is so sweet that you want to be in this show. We love, love, love that idea for somebody else, but we want this show to be big.
Yeah.
And they knew that with me, the show was small because nobody knew who I was. And so, in your career, I think you're probably presented with so many forks in the road where you can be like, this is my project that I wrote for myself. I want to be the writer, the director, the star of it. Like, that's my vision. I'm Lena Dunham. I'm making this the way that I want to fucking make it, right? Tiny Furniture. I don't know if you ever saw her original movie. But that is not how I felt. I wasn't like selling my soul. I genuinely was like, I have an opportunity to either have a show on Netflix where they immediately pick it up for 10 episodes and make all of them with Kristen Bell, or I don't have a show. I really like the first option. You know?
You made the right choice.
Yeah, yes. I mean, it wasn't hard for me to make. I was like, great. I mean, so I just think sometimes we don't even know our own potential, you know? Like me being the star of a small show that maybe you guys saw and maybe you didn't is one avenue. And me being the creator of like a massive show on Netflix that you, hopefully you've all seen, I mean, before this, that's way cooler, you know? So it's like, sometimes I think we limit ourselves because we like the idea of how something looks. But the truth is, I feel so much more powerful being in Video Village in my sweatpants, not worried if I'm looking too old or too anything because I'm an actress, and just being able to, like, my brain is what's valued.
Yeah.
You know, that's cooler to me. There are rules also about a writer's room, right? There are rules about the room looking a certain way. You want to essentially, you know, look at the room and think like this represents the world I'm trying to write about. And so if you have 6 of the same perspective, you got 6 27-year-old girls, then you're gonna get all one perspective. So you have to find a little balance so that you get different perspectives. And I kind of think, again, it's like a relationship. It's like hit or miss. You know, when I was doing season 1, I didn't know what to look for.
Yeah.
And we had some people that really didn't fit in the room well. Some people who I could tell while we were in the writer's room that they didn't really think that this show was something that they would watch. And that was a problem.
Yeah.
And so I've learned now that it's really important for me to find people who write in a similar voice that I write in, so that I'm doing a voice pass on every script. So regardless of whose name it has on it, that script is going to come to me and I can change as much or as little as I want. My life is easier if I don't have to change as much, right? Because if I do, then I'm rewriting the entire script. Their name will still be on it, but like, it's a lot more work for me. So regardless of how successful someone is, you know, if they have written on these like male-driven, very sitcom-y shows, it doesn't matter how successful they've been at it, they're not going to fit the show. Kristen and Adam both don't audition, right? They're offer only. I'm sure you guys know what that means, right? They didn't do any chemistry reads. They didn't do anything together before. So it was like a huge risk, obviously, you don't know, but on set, we do private rehearsals. And so it's something that's important to Kristen is to have a private rehearsal of every scene, which means the only people on set is the director and the producers and the actors, and all of the other crew are away. And that's when we can really like workshop things, because no matter how many times you read it, no matter how many times you read it out loud or you watch the table read of it, when you watch those people standing on set reading the words, you're like, wait, those 2 lines aren't necessary. Wait, like, I don't think that makes sense anymore. There's something about it that it occurs to you. So they are very patient and understanding that in rehearsal, we tweak things and we cross lines out, or we go like, we just realized how redundant that sounds, and we make little changes. And then once we land on what it is, then we say the crew can come in and then they can watch that rehearsal.
The dad, Kristen Bell's dad in the show, is gay.
Yeah.
Obviously, your dad's not gay.
Yeah.
We know that. Why that choice?
It was intentional to go like the opposite direction because I have written a few different pilots. My relationship with my dad was always very interesting because he was single a lot and he was dating girls that were my age. He's married to someone who's younger than me right now. And it was this sort of like we're each other's wingman kind of thing. And I'd written about it a lot. And I just honestly wanted to challenge myself. I kind of felt like maybe I'm not a real writer if I only know how to write characters that exist in my life the way that they do. So I thought, what if I come up with a different way for her to have a very unconventional family? And so I thought having a dad who, you know, was in the closet growing up and then came out, and now he's he's free because he's living his full life, but she didn't have a dad. Like, he was lying to himself when they were growing up, and so he was withholding. And now he's like, oh, let's be girlfriends. I'm out of the closet and I'm happy. And she's like, I didn't have a childhood because of you. So I'm not as excited about this. I thought that was an interesting dynamic and a way for me to like challenge myself.